Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to a beautiful sunny evening here in Cheltenham. Hope everybody's well. We've got for you a series of videos now on the skills, tips, techniques in order to become a mortgage advisor. So I guess you're online to find out about that, and we've got a few people online, which is great. For those of you online, if you want to type up your questions in the chat box, I'll pick those up as we go along. I've already had a load of questions sent through from our database of mortgage advisors. Got a stack of questions here which have been sent through, so I'm going to answer these as we go along. Today's topic, remember, is about the qualifications, the skills, CAS, CPD, and that sort of thing that we're focusing on. So remember, if you've got questions, ping them on the chat box. I've got a screen there with the chat box on it. I've got a screen there with your videos if you want to appear on that as well. It's great if you are as well. So first question has come down from our audience or our database earlier this week. And the first question is quite a simple one, really. What qualifications do I need to become a mortgage advisor? Well, there's a variety of qualifications, of course, you can have as a mortgage advisor. But the first qualification that you'll need is the CMAP or the CF1, CF/6, which are really good papers to have. Now, many of you, of course, have already studied for these. So the first question then that we got, and we'll put it up here for you, is what quals do we need to become a mortgage advisor? Well, as you probably appreciate, of course, you've got your CMAP 1, 2 and 3, or you've got your CF1, CF6, which is the other way of doing things, which a lot of people do. So that's the basic mortgage advisor's role. Now, this actually gives you the authorization to carry out protection advice as well. Not a lot of people know that. It allows you to become a protection advisor without any further qualifications, which in my opinion is a bit dangerous, but we'll get on to that a little bit later as well. So that's the first question, pretty straightforward. Now, if you really wanted to, you could push the bar out a bit and go for an advanced paper. The advanced papers are voluntary at the moment. They're not compulsory. The regulator said it's not making these things compulsory in the near future. The best advanced paper is what they call the RO7. The RO7 comes from the Chartered Insurance Institute. The LIBF do their own one. It's a diploma, they call it, and it's a bit long-winded in my book. But the RO7 is a multiple choice exam. That'll get you to what they call level 4 qualified. The CMAP is a basic level 3. It's just different levels, really. Now, the advanced paper is voluntary. If you've got a bit of time, which many of us have at the moment, of course, you might want to seriously think about that, but that's entirely up to you. Whether the regulator will make that mandatory, I don't know. It's a good paper. It covers specialised mortgage schemes. The problem with CMAP, of course, is it's woefully inadequate for the modern mortgage market. I mean, CMAP syllabus was first created in 2004. I mean, that's 16 years ago now. Obviously, they've tweaked it, but it needs a bit of an overhaul, and hopefully that will come through. So that's question number one, really. Question number two is an interesting one. That is, how do I obtain my mortgage qualification? Well, the best way to obtain it is to study, obviously. You can study on your own, you can study in a classroom, you can study online. Obviously, classroom courses have all stopped now, so online or textbook-based study is about the only way you can do it. You can do it through your employer, you can do it yourself before you become employed, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So on your CV it says, own study for CMAP, goes down particularly well if you're looking for a job or a position or something like that. So that's something to think about. So really, truly, it's up to you to get on with it and get studying as quickly and as fast as you possibly can. Another question's come in for me then. How long will it take me to become mortgage qualified? So what sort of time scale have we got then? So let's take a look at that one. How long? Let's put a little question there for you. How long will it take me to become mortgage qualified? Well, that all depends on you, of course. Some people take over a year to get qualified because they've got lots of other things in their life going on. Some people can get it done in 2, 3, 4 weeks. At the moment, of course, you've got plenty of time possibly available to you, so you can get cracking and get it done as soon as you can. It's going to take about 80 hours or so of study time per paper. So CMAP 1 and CMAP 2 and 3. There's approximately 80 hours per paper. But that depends where you've come from, what your background is and what you're used to doing. Because some people know a lot of stuff beforehand, some people don't. But you can't take any shortcuts. I've seen people come they buy a couple of test papers from me and they take them and take the exam and fail it. They say, well, why did I fail? I said, well, you haven't studied hard enough. So you've got to work on these things because it's a hell of a syllabus. You've got to be able to study hard. Our boot camp gets people in it within a year. We have a 4-month kind of cohort where we encourage people to get through it in 4 months by doing sort of 3 lessons a week. But it all depends how much time you got. When courses were around, you could do a crash course for a week. A lot of people did those things. They're okay. They tend to teach you the exam rather than the topic. So when you become a mortgage advisor, you don't know what to do, which is a bit scary, isn't it, when it comes to it. So that's a pretty good question, isn't it? Remember, guys, those of you online here, quite a few people coming in now, which is great. Any questions that you've got, just type them up, and I'll be happy to answer those as we go along. Remember, tonight is about qualifications, skills, CAS, and CPD, which gets me on to our next question, which is a really common question I get asked a lot. And that one is how do I obtain my CAS? How do I obtain my CAS? Is the question. I'll put it up there on the whiteboard as well so you can read that. Now, CAS stands for Competent Advisor Status. CAS, Competent Advisor Status. And for those of you in the know, it's the period or the milestone that you achieve, and from there on you can become a fully fledged mortgage advisor and give mortgage advice on your own. Up until getting CAS, you can't give mortgage advice on your own. There's pretty much, I'll put a little graph up for you on this one. If we do sort of like a timeline here, which sometimes helps people to appreciate where we're going. This timeline represents time, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't call it a timeline. And this timeline is the time it takes you. Now, from 0 to say 4 months, you're going to be doing your CMAP. Or CF1, CF6 exams, and you're going to be studying and getting on with it. Now, whilst you're studying for the exams, there's not an awful lot of work you can do in the financial services arena. It may well be you're working for a company, a financial company, a mortgage brokerage. I've got, for example, one of the ladies on my boot camp who works for a mortgage brokerage, but she's studying for her CMAP. So she's just doing admin and paperwork and stuff like that, which is completely non-authorised. So you can do that, or you can do any job you're doing. But as soon as you get qualified, you then have to join an organisation. I'll talk about that a little bit later. You have to join an organisation like an existing brokerage, a network, or maybe a lender. And you become either employed or self-employed, but you're attached to them. They are already authorised, and that's important. So my friend on the boot camp, the mortgage brokerage that she works for, they already have qualified individuals there. They've already got their CAS status. They're already authorised under the Financial Conduct Authority. So you've got to join somebody like that, and I'll talk a bit more about that shortly for you. So once you do that, you then go into what they call sort of on-the-job training, I suppose, for any other word. Call that period on the job. You're doing the work, you're fact-finding customers, clients, you're doing the advisor's role, maybe you're paid to do that as well. But you're not authorised to give mortgage advice until you reach CAS. And CAS itself is a period where you suddenly get that sort of qualification, or you get that milestone achieved. Now, to get to CAS, you've got to be doing the job under supervision. So you're going to have somebody who's watching you, supervising you, keeping an eye on you. This person in a big company would be a coach, a trainer maybe, or maybe a sales manager. In a small organisation, it's probably just the only authorised mortgage advisor. He or she is watching you, giving you advice, showing you how to do it. You watch, then you have a go. You can't give advice. If you do calculate some advice, then that mortgage advisor has to verify it first before the client gets given that. You can fact find, but you must also always have the supervisor there with you. So as you can appreciate, it's quite time consuming. You've got to have a certain number of mortgage meetings carried out under supervision. You've got to complete some supervision or some suitability reports. You've got to complete some fact finds. You've got to do various compliance requirements under the supervision of your supervisor. And when he or she feels that you've reached that standard, that benchmark, and only they can determine that, then you get awarded your CAS. For example, if you were to join a network, say you were to join something like New Leaf or Intrinsic or somebody, they would have a process organised whereby you have to have a certain number of meetings carried out with clients, you have to have certain suitability reports carried out, and after a certain number of these things that you've been observed doing, they give you the thumbs up and you become authorised. There's no more rocket science than that. They have their own processes, their own metrics, their own numbers that they determine whether you've reached that standard. But once you've reached CAS standard, which can take a little while, if you've only got one advisor in the company and she's really busy, then it's going to take a long while to get there. Once you've reached CAS standard, you are then a fully qualified or fully authorised, I should say, mortgage advisor. There you go, MA. And you can do your own work. You don't need to be supervised all the time. You still are going to be supervised under training and competence, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. You still are going to be supervised, but it's a lot less of a light touch supervision. And that's you, CAS. So that's how best to get it. You've got to join a company, you've got to join an organisation that's going to give that to you, and that's often the catch-22, because you're going to find getting your CMAP is actually not the hard part, although it might seem hard at the time. You've then got to join somebody that's willing to take you on under their wings. So that's pretty much what CAS is, how you get it, who you might want to join as part of that as well. These companies then that you're thinking of joining, these networks, these principals, these companies that are available to you, the question really is coming out, how do I join a network? What is a network? So you've got to think about who to go to get your work. Now, obviously the world's gone completely mad at the moment, and let's hope that we can get through all of this, and hopefully we will do. And for those of you watching this video later, this is the current sort of isolation period we're all going through. But once you're up and running and we're looking to move you on to the next stage, you need to get joining somebody. Now, you can join somebody like a network, for example. You can join a mortgage company, so a broker. You could look to join a lender. And it's up to you how you do this. And we'll talk more about this in the next meeting we're having, next webinar that we've got coming up for you. We'll talk more about the different networks, different lenders and different brokers, and how you go about getting under their wing so that you can get your CAS status and moving forward. And we'll talk about the difference between self-employed and employed as well when we meet tomorrow night as well. Next two questions for you. I've got here a question around CPD requirements. So let's just take this off for you, a little timeline for you. CPD requirements. The question is, what CPD requirements will I have as a fully qualified mortgage advisor? So once you've got your CMAPs and you've got your CAS, what's CPD? Now, CPD, of course, stands for Continued Professional Development. And oddly enough, there is no requirement for CPD. Not a lot of people know that. So what is CPD is the question. There is no requirement, which sounds daft, doesn't it? To become a protection advisor, you have to have 15 hours a year of CPD, but that's woeful, really, isn't it? Think about it. So it's up to you. It's up to the network that you belong to, or the mortgage broker that you belong to, or the principal that you're part of, the lender maybe. It's entirely up to you. They decide how much CPD you need. Another question for you. How do I keep up to date? Keep up to date. Now, of course, this market that we're in changes all the time. We're going through some seismic changes at the moment, and you do need to keep up to date. You do need to know what's going on. So here's a few ideas for you to help you keep up to date. Personally, if your brokerage or your network doesn't require you to do CPD at all, just ignore that. Do it. Set yourself a target for CPD. Now, financial advisors need a whole lot more hours than the mortgage advisors, so you do need to set yourself a target of CPD. You should be doing, and it's up to you, of course, it's up to you what you do. There's a lovely rule we use in the business of 60, 20, 20. Now, this rule is where you spend your time as a mortgage professional. So say, for example, you're working 5 days in a week or 4 days in a week. These represent percentages. Now the 60% is the time that you should spend advising, because that's how you make your money, and you've got to earn some money, of course. Now, of course, at the moment, advisors are doing that all online. I'm going to talk about that later this week. But advising 60% of your time. 20% of your time you should be spending prospecting. Now that's prospecting for new business, getting new clients, new people to talk to. Unless, of course, you're working for a lender like Santander and you're sitting in a branch and people come in all the time, you don't need to worry about doing that. But if you're going to be self-employed or working for a small brokerage, you're going to have to get off your butt and go and find some clients. If you don't, you won't be in business for very long. And you need to spend 20% a week doing that. Now, it will be where you get really busy, you won't have a chance to do that. So that's something to think about. The last one, the 20% there, is the time you're spending CPD. You should spend that amount of time developing yourself, improving your skills. And you should. There's no excuse for that, because you are selling your brain, you're selling your advice. You're not selling a widget or a product, you're selling your brain. So keep it up to speed. So you keep up to date with forums, online blogs. LinkedIn's quite a useful place as well. You can go to lender events, you can go to lender conferences. BDMs are very good educators now, decent BDMs now, business development managers of the lenders. No longer are they just rocking up telling you about their products, they're actually educating you on the topics behind it, well, the good ones should anyway. You want to be picking up some regular periodicals, either paper magazines or online magazines. Pick up obviously papers, online papers, of course. Financial press is important. Mortgage strategy, there's various magazines you can have there. I pick up, because you can't spend all day reading, can you? I pick up The Economist every week. I pick up Money Week, which is a weekly update on all things financial. The Week magazine as well. But I also have Mortgage Strategy, Mortgage Introducer to know what's going on. I use Google Alerts, which gives me connections on decent web pages. They've got some good stuff going on. And I consume ferociously podcasts. I love a podcast because it lets you multitask. You can drive a car, you can go to the gym whilst you're listening to podcasts. So pick up a number of podcasts in the mortgage world, in the financial services world. A lot of lenders do some good podcasts. Precise do a good podcast. A couple of lenders do as well. Peter Crouch does one too, but that's football, so it's entirely up to you what you want. So I consume a load of those things. You can do a load more exams if you want to. They're great things, exams, don't get me wrong, but they're a little bit theoretical. They're often set by institutes in their ivory towers, aren't they? So make sure that your CPD is practical and up to date as well. Next question really links into CPD, which I quite like this one, is how do I learn about products and schemes? So how do you keep up to date with products and schemes from lenders? That's the question really that's coming in there. So how do you keep up with these things then? Well, the best thing to do is to make sure that your network, your authorised company that you're with, gives you information about products, and have a decent sourcing system. We'll talk about it a bit later. A sourcing system allows you to look at all the lenders on a computer, and it allows you to know the different products and what's going on, the different rates and things. You'll never keep up to date with all of them. It's impossible. There's too many schemes. BDMs will want to phone you up every day and tell you all about them, but you probably won't have time for that. So make sure you get your email alerts, make sure you download all your PDFs, all the information you need to update yourself. Your network might give you information about the different schemes coming online, but make sure you're aware of your sourcing system, because products change. Keep yourself up to date with different types of products, particularly if you're in the later life market, for example. They're always changing, hybrids coming in, different schemes coming in. Of course, going out as well. Gone are the tracker mortgages at the moment, because the Bank of England base rate's so low. Tracker mortgages themselves are just not something lenders want to offer. So keep yourselves up to date with lenders and schemes. The best thing to do is get in with some good lenders who are going to keep you up to date along the way. Another question come in then. What further qualifications do I need? What further quals do you need or could you consider as part of your CPD? It's a thought, isn't it, to think about. It's up to you what you do. It does depend, of course, where you want to go. And we'll talk about these now. What do you want to do? We mentioned the CMAP and the advanced papers, you could look at doing RO7, some advanced papers as well, if that's your cup of tea. You could certainly look at getting into the later life market, the equity release market. That's a fantastic place to divert yourself. The ER1 is the best paper for that one. So we just put that down for you. Equity release, the ER1 is the best paper. The London Institute do their SARA, as they call it. They're very much the same paper. It's entirely up to you which one you do. I wouldn't worry about competing those two institutes, but the ER1's a very good paper as well. If you're going to get into the later life market, you definitely want to look at long-term care as well. The long-term care paper. That's a pretty clever one. It's done by both institutes, and it teaches you about long-term care really, and the implications around caring, powers of attorney, trusts, wills, state support. It really deep dive into the long-term care market area, and it's one that you might want to take a look at in detail. If you want to become an IFA, of course, you've got to look at different qualifications, which we'll come on to in a second as well. Don't forget your skills. Now, qualifications are great, and we've talked a lot about CPD and qualifications and everything, and knowledge and updating. Now, as a professional mortgage advisor, you've got to have a lot of skills. You've got to be really skilled up. So make sure that you've got your communication skills, your ability to use technology, your empathy skills, your questioning skills, your prospecting skills. I mean, the list goes on, the type of skills you might want to consider as well. So where could your career go? That's a question that's come in from a few people before. Where could your career go? Let's just put that question in there for you. It's up to you where you want to get to, what you want to do as a mortgage advisor. There's all sorts of options available to you that you could consider. There's the specialist route. Of course, you could stay as a mortgage advisor and get very good at a very specialist area, such as the later life market. Get yourself equity release qualified, and you can have a very good career in the later life market, specialising in that niche area. You could look at the buy-to-let sector. You could look at specialist expat mortgages. You could look at shared ownership type mortgages if you wanted to. You could even look at a mortgage for a particular sector like doctors or dentists or whatever it is. So you could make a very good living just by specialising in mortgages. I wouldn't say that being a generalist, a jack of all trades in the mortgage market is a clever move, because you don't really want to get into vanilla type mortgage lending, because banks and robo-advisors, technology will take that over because it's pretty simple stuff. But specialist is a good place you could go to. You could certainly look at the lender route. You could go and work as a BDM, a business development manager for a lender. I know many BDMs who used to be mortgage brokers, and they're now business development managers. Good salaries, good bonus, quite a lot of pressure, but the good guys are earning £80,000, £90,000, £100,000 plus incomes with company cars, all those good things. You can certainly look at that. You could look at become an underwriter maybe within a lender if that's your cup of tea, as they say. So maybe that's an area you could look at doing, maybe into fund management or something like that. A lot of brokers, though, like to think about becoming an IFA, a fully qualified financial advisor. And that's obviously a route you could take as well. Becoming a wealth advisor, for example, or a financial advisor, pensions advisor. You could certainly look at those areas. Very few specialist financial advisors are also mortgage brokers, so be prepared that if you're going to go into a financial advising role, make sure you specialise, because again, technology will take over the generalists, because it already has. So make sure you're a pension specialist or a wealth specialist. You won't have time to do mortgage broking as well. Mortgage broking is a very time-consuming job. You've got to know lenders and schemes and all sorts of things. So there's a lot of, maybe even a trainer, you could look at possibly looking at that area as well. Little question here, how can I qualify as a protection advisor? I mentioned this a couple of times. You don't actually qualify as a protection advisor. Your CMAP will give you the ability to be a protection advisor. Your CAS status, though, will look at protection as a permission. You have to get permission from the FCA to be a mortgage advisor, to be a protection advisor. So whoever you're with, your network, for example, will want to make sure that you're qualified under protection as well. There is an exam for protection. I think it's called RO3, I think it is, from the CII, which is not a bad paper. You could look at that if you wanted to, but theoretically CMAT would qualify you for it. But definitely get involved in protection. You know, if you're going to be a decent, half decent mortgage advisor, you definitely want to get involved in protection, don't you? Question here, how do you get involved in the later life market? Well, we talked about it, haven't we? You've got to get your equity release exams, naturally, and then you've got to get good in that sector. You've got to learn how to market in that sector as well, because it's very, very different to other sectors, the equity release sector. The sales process is very different, so make sure you're comfortable in that area as well. Another question here, how can I advise on wills, powers of attorney and trusts? It's an interesting question, isn't it? I know lots of brokers who refer people on for those things and maybe get a bit of a commission or proc fee of some description. But I also know brokers who have got themselves qualified as well. One chap I was talking to a couple of weeks back, he went on a training course and got himself authorised to write wills and powers of attorney. And therefore he charges commission and he gets commission, but he charges a fee for that process. I think it's a great thing to get involved in. You've got to think about diversifying as a mortgage broker. You've got to think about getting through the recession, which we're due to have, aren't we? Let's face it. We're probably overdue for this recession. It's probably already started with the crunch that we've got going on at the moment. So you need to think about that. How can I become an IFA? Well, again, it's up to you and where you join to start with. Now, a good pal of mine, he runs a brokerage or a network called New Leaf. Probably heard of it, and good fun. And he states quite clearly that if a mortgage broker wants to join them, that mortgage broker needs to have aspirations to becoming a full IFA. And he lays out the path for his people. Yeah, mortgage advisor to start with, and then he takes you to CAS as an IFA. He wants you to be a fully qualified financial advisor. So you've got to get yourself your network or your brokerage, or whoever you're working for, has got to take you to becoming an IFA, and there's qualifications. And there's the CAS status as well to obtain there as well. Here's an interesting new area we haven't really looked at, because we've looked at exams and stuff and all that kind of kit. I mean, technical knowledge, and I go to a lot of industry events. I talk at a lot of industry events, and most IFAs brokers are only keen to learn about technical stuff. They want to learn the products. The biggest competition you're going to have in the future is not other brokers or mortgage advisors. It's technology. Because artificial intelligence, all these methodologies will give people basic advice. For example, I was talking to a young couple last night on video about their mortgage. They're looking to get a mortgage in Scotland. And they're a young couple, they're newly qualified, degree graduates, and they've got good incomes. They've got employed incomes. They're pretty straightforward. And my advice is, get along to a local lender, something like Nationwide, Santander. They'll give you the rock bottom interest rates. It's not a complicated mortgage you've got. And they said to me, do I have to go and see somebody? Can't I just do it on my phone? And that's how the younger generation rock. We know that. And artificial intelligence will do that kind of mortgage because it's easy, it's simple, it's not complicated. So you want to get involved in more specialist areas, as we said before. But you also want to get really good at dealing with people. I mean, really good. You've got to get exceptionally good skill sets, your emotional intelligence. You've got to be good at communication, face-to-face or on video. We've got a session on this one, how to use this kit, talking to customers moving forward. You've got to get good at this. Obviously, the next couple of months, you're going to have to. But moving forward, this will be the way that we communicate. I've spoken to so many mortgage advisors in the last few years about this being the future, and they say to me, oh no, Paul, it's always face-to-face. My clients always want to see me. There you go. And it's rubbish. They don't. They actually don't want to see a mortgage broker. They want to get the mortgage done. And if they could do it through video or Zoom or something, that's the option they'll take, which makes absolute sense if you think about it. So please don't think it has to be face-to-face. You've got to be really good at communication. You've got to be really good personal skills. You've got to have great empathy. You've got to have the ability to build trust with everybody that you meet. You've got to have the ability to ask good questions, to listen, to summarise. You've got to have the ability to understand detail. You've got to be good at maths. You've got to be good at calculations and things like that. You've got to have influencing skills. We used to call them sales skills, and you've got to be able to run a sales process. Of course you have, otherwise you go out of business. You've got to be good at influencing people. Now, Boris Johnson and his crew at the moment are using behavioural economics to influence the British public to stay indoors. I think it's not working so well. They're probably go to martial law shortly. But the point is, you've got to be good at influencing people, getting them to understand your advice and take on your advice. Persuasion probably is a better word for it. You've got to be good at resilience, maintaining your mojo, your self-reliance on your own capability, to self-motivate yourself, to keep your motivation high, stop getting down. They reckon one of the biggest problems at the moment in this country is people's self-motivation, because people are locked up indoors and they're not feeling as good as they should, and that may well be a problem moving forward. So they're the skills that you want to be looking at as well. And what specific skills do I need to be a later life advisor? Now, I'm getting into the later life market, and the recession's kicked in. I'm going to be looking at giving advice in the later life market myself. I've already set up with a local brokerage here in Cheltenham. I've got myself qualified, obviously. I teach the topic. I've been on some courses with L&G, Aviva, about how to run a business, how to prospect, and I'm good to go in that area, and I'm really looking forward to it. The reason is I'm quite old. I'm 57 this year, and therefore I can have almost like empathy with the elderly generation. So the skills you need to be a later life advisor, you need to have really good empathy with people in those positions. You've got to have a lot of patience, because you'll be doing a number of mortgage meetings or equity release meetings before you get anywhere. You've got to be good at prospecting, because you've got to get out there and find clients. Of course you do. You've got to be able to follow a process, because it's highly regulated, the later life market, because you're dealing with vulnerable customers, and vulnerable customers the FCA are very concerned about. But the big one is empathy, communication, ability to talk to people of a later generation, but also you'll be talking to their family. You'll be talking to the children of the elderly relatives that you're dealing with, because they're going to lose their inheritance. So you do need to get them on your side as well. So you do need an awful lot of issues there as well. A couple of last questions for you. How can I build empathy and trust? That's a great question, isn't it? How can I build empathy and trust? And they are different things, empathy and trust. How can I build empathy and trust? Now, trust is the most important quality to have as a mortgage advisor. If your client doesn't trust you, then they're not going to do business with you. It's as clear as that. And you have to build trust before you go anywhere. In the old days, in the 90s, we used to call it rapport. I still call it rapport. And I know many mortgage advisors who just wanted to be a nice person. As long as they were nice, they thought that people would buy that. And to a degree they did. But it's more trust now. Trust, well, there's a lot to it, but there's pretty much 3 secrets to trust that you want to be thinking about here. The first, there's three secrets which I call KICK is the acronym you can use. The first one is you've got to be competent. You've got to be good at what you do. You've got to be qualified, obviously, competent with your knowledge, competent at communicating. You've got to look the part, naturally. You've got to be good, and that's the first thing about trust. Then you've got intent. What's your intentions? You've got to lay down exactly why you're doing what you're doing. Now, I want to get into the later life market because 30 odd years ago they had a bad experience with some pretty shady characters in the later life market. And I want to look after people who've got bricks and mortar, and I want them to be able to get the very best advice for them to release some equity. And I want all their family to understand what they're doing. I run a training company because my role here is to get as many people owning their properties than they used to be in the past. We used to have a massive owner-occupation rate, which has come down in the early noughties. I want that to go back up again. That's why I train mortgage advisors, because the more mortgage advisors you've got, the more people become owner-occupiers. And that drives me. That's my intent. Yes, I need to earn a living. Of course I do. We've got bills to pay. Let's be honest about it. But I'm not ripping people off, etc. I'm not that kind of person. But I have underlying drive. So make sure your intention is known by your client. And the last one to see there is what I call common ground. This is the old rapport, isn't it? Common ground. Make sure you've got something in common with your clients. Now, you can't talk about sport at the moment because there isn't any on the telly or live either. But there needs to be some common ground. A friend of mine, Paul, he jokes to me sometimes that he does every single hobby known to mankind, because when the client says that they play golf, Paul plays golf. if the client does model railways, then Paul does model railways. I think it'll get him into trouble at one point, actually, because he will get caught out. But that's the secret to trust. Now, empathy is very different. Empathy is appreciating where people are coming from, appreciating their point of view, their situation. NLP, which I talk about a lot, neuro-linguistic programming, talks about 3 positions: first, second, third position. First position is how you see it, second position is how the customer sees it, and third position is how you both see things. And that's a great way of getting really good empathy with a client. But we'll talk about that more at some other point. Last question for you, because I'm looking down there for any questions from you guys, none coming through. Last question then is, how can I get good at sales and running a business? Well, the best thing to do about getting good at sales and running a business is to follow a sales process and keep your business ticking away with metrics, with goals, with CRM systems. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next few sessions that are coming up. So, hey, there we go. Quite a lot of questions there about qualifications, the skills you need, CAS, CPD, all the things that you need. If anyone wants to type up any questions, I'm happy to take those now for you. Otherwise, we'll wrap things up and speak to you tomorrow night, hopefully, as well, because I hope we get a few more people on to type up some questions. Hope you found that useful for you. Nothing coming through. Again, ping me questions if you want to. Happy to answer them. I'm not going anywhere. We're in the basement here, which is the home video studio. Our other trainers in the team have got their studios as well, so we're not going out. It's a good job we got this. We can at least talk to you guys and keep you, educated and qualified along the way. No questions. I'll say good night to you all, and see you tomorrow night, same time, 5 o'clock, for the next topic in our series.